Hi, Rebecca Simon Peter here with Leadership Mojo. Leadership Mojo, I'm really excited to be with you today. We are talking about what goes on in small churches, so how small churches can adapt to the pandemic. There have been a handful of models to survive the pandemic and that I want to talk about today. So there's the church at home model, there's the shut in model, there's the never shut down model, and there's the hybrid model. And with each of these models that small churches have been adapting for surviving the pandemic, there are new opportunities. And that's what I want to talk about, the new opportunities to adapt worship, new opportunities to adapt Christian education for each of these settings. So I want to share some effective tips for keeping things alive. But the main thing I really want you to know today, if you're pastoring in a small town or you're in a small church, you are not alone. You're not alone. I know it can feel lonely out there, isolating and exhausting, just managing the technology, leading from a new position. But so often, small churches are in isolated places, and clergy and church leaders may feel isolated from each other. That's why I wanted to bring this message today to let you know you're not alone so you can hear what some of the best practices are. And I've picked these up in my work with creating a culture of renewal. We're working with small church congregations and large church congregations all over the country. And we've gained wisdom from these small churches that are effectively using these four models. So let's talk about them. Oh, but first, the challenge. The big challenge here for small churches is to communicate change in an effective way. A lot of times in a small town or small church, there's the sense, hey, everybody already knows this. If a couple of people know, you figure everybody knows. But churches that under communicate and assume that everybody already know what is happening set themselves up for dangerous outcomes, because it ensures that you will leave people out as you make changes when you just tell a couple of people. And when you lose contact with those members, that really weakens the bond for when people want to come back when it's safe. So keep that regular communication flowing and make sure you're over communicating. Okay. If you feel like you've told everybody 3 times, do it one more time to everybody. And that's really going to be just about the time that everybody's hearing the communication for the first time. So I want you to be able to really have people come along with you as you're making these changes. So let's look at the first model. The first model is the church at home model. And it's a lot like the homeschool model. It's especially useful if your church is shut down, like you're not able to have the doors open or there's people aren't coming back. But in this way, worship and Christian education is provided at home in a family setting. In other words, in the living room, in the kitchen, around the dinner table. And in a way, this is the ultimate small church model because it's home by home by home by home. And the value of families or couples worshiping together or individual people with their pets. I mean, the value of people bringing worship into their home and making sacred their everyday living space, it cannot be underestimated because that's the ultimate weaving together of a person's life with their spirituality. That's Sunday through Sunday spirituality, which we definitely want. And small churches can minister to the church at home by delivering weekly or monthly handouts. You can follow lectionary themes, you can follow seasonal themes. And I encourage you to coordinate the worship with the Christian ed so that it really builds on each other. And there are places that you can get free downloads. You don't have to make this stuff up from scratch, cokesbury.com, Lifeway, depending upon your denominational affiliation. Either of those might feel like the best fit for you. Be sure to include an offering envelope when you make these deliveries to homes, as well as letters of communication. So that there's a sense of them speaking to you, you speaking to them, and then being able to contribute back through that envelope to the congregation and the community at large. And that's if email's not being used. If email's being used, make sure that your letters of communication are going through the email, and you can still drop off an offering envelope when you're delivering an upper room or downloadables or holiday themed drop-bys. All right, so that's the first model, is church at home. The second model is the shut-in model. Now, if your congregation has reopened, but older members are reluctant to return to in-person worship, that's more like the shut-in model. Similar to the church at home model, the shut-in model is delivery-based. So think about it. How did you minister to the shut-ins before the pandemic? Did you deliver bulletins? Did you bring by upper rooms? Did you bring communion? You can bring pre-packaged communion to these folks. And the one difference may be that you need to socially distance. There may be some reluctance to have non-family members visit. If you're in a warm weather climate, you can do that on the front porch or the back porch. But also be sure to include newsletters, be sure to include an offering envelope, be sure to include the little extras that make it feel like that person was at church. Now, here's another option for your church at home and for your shut-in model that you can use a conference call like freeconference.com or something like that, a conference call number for bridge line-based prayer or worship or brief Christian education sessions. All right, those are the first two models. Now let's go to the third, and that's the never shut down. We never shut down. I've heard people say, and I think, how did you never shut down? But there are some churches that never shut down. They never stop meeting, or they continue to meet for the most part. If you're in that kind of setting right now, you're going to want to pay special attention to protecting at-risk populations. I think people are becoming increasingly sensitive, even if your folks tend to not want to wear masks or have vaccines. With the rise in the Delta variants, people are understanding they've got to pay a little more attention. So you as the leader, pay attention to at-risk populations, including folks who are unvaccinated. If it was me, I'd be sure to ask people to mask or give them that option to sit 6 feet or more apart during worship and to use hand sanitizer, the new sacrament. It's the new church sacrament is hand sanitizer. And the value of meeting together, even under these conditions, is really, really strong. People to people contact, worshiping in community, just the joy of seeing familiar faces while keeping those safety practices in place. I mean, it really boosts the spirit. It makes glad the heart. It strengthens the sense of connection, and it provides that fellowship that is so important for the heart, for the soul, for the well-being, for Christian community. All right, those are the first three models: church at home, the shut-in model, and the never shut down model. You may be pulling all of this together and have a hybrid model in your church. So if and when your small church begins to meet again, don't be surprised if some of your people don't return. You're probably already seeing it. Not everybody's coming back. Not everybody has come back. Now, there's two reasons they could opt out, at least two. One is safety concerns, but the other is convenience. They just got out of the habit. They're out of the habit. It's been a whole year and a half, maybe 2 years. And in this case, developing a hybrid model of worship and education is a really good thing to invest in. If internet is not accessible, your hybrid model might be ongoing delivery to the church at home or to the shut-in folks, even as the rest of your congregation worships in person. Again, be sure to mail offering envelopes, be sure to give people an opportunity to give online, make sure they've got downloadables, make sure they've got special delivery packets for the different seasons and holidays in the life of the church. If, though, you have internet access, use that to create a hybrid community, a community that allows people to participate online or in person. It's the new way we're doing life, and it's the new way we're doing church. There may be a little bit of resistance in your congregation. Hey, if we could come back, how come they can't come back? And that resistance may lead to some resentment and then reluctance to actually embrace the hybrid model. This is an opportunity for you to really teach and preach on hospitality. Don't give in to that resistance, that reluctance, and that resentment. It's not going to serve your community well, and it won't serve you well. And it definitely won't serve those folks that for whatever reason are not coming back. So you can live stream worship, you can do Bible study on Facebook, or you can record and post to YouTube. Now, it's time now to plan your next outreach, whether that's a mailbox delivery for Thanksgiving, a bulletin, or a letter to your congregation. I really want to encourage you to lead with love, follow up with invitation, and round it out with a call to action. Always a call to action, the altar call. Even if it's the church at home model or it's the shut-in model, the altar call is so important. How are we calling people to live their faith this week? Don't give up on that. Don't give up on that. And it may be different kinds of calls to action. It could be asking people to pray for one another. It could be asking people to contribute to a food bank or to call their neighbor. or something. Just because folks aren't meeting in person doesn't mean they can't stay connected and doesn't mean they don't want to be in action. Now is the time that we're creating this distributed network of love and mission and missional engagement. And don't forget to ask them to contribute to the work of the church. It doesn't have to be financial contribution, but when they give, when they love, when they serve, let it be in the name of God. Let it be in the name of Christ. Let them be representatives of the gospel. Remind folks of that. Now, it's always really great to be with you. And this month, I'm really working on small church messages for small church pastors, small church congregations. And I'm really pleased to be able to bring this message to you. If you want to do more work together, and I would love to do that with you, if you're looking for next best practice as you survive the pandemic, I'd like to invite you to join me for a brand new online short course. I love these short courses. They're just 3 sessions, 3 weeks in November, and it's called Church Growth from Barriers to Breakthroughs. We're going to use the theme of David and Goliath. We are going to look at undiscovered dynamics in the David and Goliath story, things you haven't thought of before. That's really going to empower you to think about church growth in a new way, from barriers to breakthroughs. I'd love to see you there. You can go to my website to register, www.rebeccasimonpeter.com. Come back next week, same time, same place, for another Leadership Mojo as we continue to delve into the dynamics of mid-pandemic and post-pandemic survival and thriving in the small church. Thanks so much for being here. It was great to be with you, and I will see you next time. God bless you until then.